So, last week we were in Nashville, Tennessee at the Redneck Riviera, John Rich's place. Couldn't be a better host, John Rich. He's a patriot. And we had a great time. It was great to see some people, put some names to faces. We had a great time. But as I was getting ready to go down, our old friend Michael Curtis texted me and said, man, if you have a day off on Saturday, it would be really worth it for you and Harry to get in the car, drive 2 hours, and come see me down in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Because, Big D, you being a music person, you would really appreciate some of the history here. And I'll take you around and I'll show you some things. And, it's a day that I will never forget. So please welcome to Live from Studio 6B, the aforementioned Mr. Michael Curtis. Mr. Curtis, how are you?
What's going on, guys?
Well, it's good to see you. It's good to have you on the show. And as I was just saying, I know I told you this 100 times in person, but it's a day I'll never forget. It was me and Harry had the absolute best time. I was just overwhelmed. About 5 minutes into our first stop, I looked at Harry and said, well, I'm realizing how little I know about music. So let's start where we started. And we went to Muscle Shoals recording studio and share and the whole, just give everybody just a little history on that building and that spot.
Well, the Swampers, they're known as Jimmy Johnson, Barry Beckett, Roger Hawkins, and David Hood, went there in 1969 and opened Muscle Shoals Sound. And the first big hit there was Take a Letter, Maria. And pretty much after that, the Rolling Stones cut Brown Sugar there. Bob Seger cut Old Time Rock and Roll there.
Wow.
Rod Stewart cut Tonight's the Night.
What?
Leonard Skinner. I could just go on and go on. Willie Nelson cut Bloody Mary Morning, I think his first big radio hit. The list, I could just sit here for an hour telling you its history, and that's just one of the studios.
Yeah, and the gentleman who took us through and pointed out, obviously, it was, for me, obviously, being a piano player, it was amazing for him to say, oh, you see this piano? Well, that's when you hear this. That was on this, that was played here, and oh, this was played here, and oh, this was played here. And you see that bathroom? Well, that's where Mick Jagger ended up singing because they didn't like, and this is where, they were, Keith Richards was blowing out, he said he was blowing out, it was too loud. They wanted to use something to kind of tune down his, the stories of the gentleman who took us through there were just unbelievable.
Yeah, Terrell does a great job in doing the tours for that. And I never will forget when Jimmy Johnson told me the story, though. He said he had his friend made him a bump down box, and he said Keith Richards was overdriving every preamp in their mixing board. And he said, then I put this bump down box on, and I went in and heard bap, bap, which went on to be Brown Sugar, which is amazing recording.
Yeah. So what was it at the time? Was Muscle Shoals, obviously, a lot of people have told me to watch, as including you, to watch the documentary that's on Netflix, Muscle Shoals by Magnolia Pictures, which I'm absolutely going to do. But what was it? Was it the sound that was coming out of there? Was it just the people? Was it a combination of all of that? What was it that made that place so special between those years where more number one hits came out of there than any place in the world?
I think they call it the Singing River here, and I think even Keith Richards and Bono mentioned in the documentary about something being in the water. But if you drew a diamond from Nashville to Memphis to Birmingham to Atlanta back to Nashville, Muscle Shoals is right in the middle of that. And Muscle Shoals was a great melting pot for all different kinds of music. When Rick Hall started Fame, which is where the Swampers started, Aretha Franklin, Respect, the hits that came out of there, Arthur Alexander, You Better Move On. That was one of the first things that came out. But also all of Wilson Pickett's biggest hits, like Land of a Thousand Dances. Of course, Delbert McClinton cut it, Muscle Shoals Sound. And, I could just go on. And then the great thing, as you're finding out, Damon, not only is the history, since the documentary, there's a revitalization. And, when Billy Lawson, my friend that owns Wishbone, which is an amazing talent himself, but there's so much history in that studio, and then the new surgeon of talent and producers and people that's resurging in this area. It's just really remarkable.
So let's talk a little bit about that. And this is certainly not to, Nashville is what Nashville is, and obviously it's the center of country music, I guess. But we all know that country music has somewhat become commercialized, and there's kind of like a system to make a hit. And, you listen to Sirius or you listen to country radio and you hear about an hour and a half's worth of music, and then you're pretty much going to hear the same hour and a half again. Talk a little bit about the difference between kind of Nashville and artists trying to make it and the recording studios and process there, as opposed to some of these guys, as you were saying, are finding their way back to places like Wishbone and other places because the feeling is different, the history is different, the way it works. Just talk a little bit about country, the state of country music today, as opposed to what maybe is going on other places.
Well, I think what you're seeing, it kind of took a trend where country was sounding more rock and pop than it was actual country music. And one of the big resurgence right now is 90s country. One of my closest friends, Marty Raven from the group Shenandoah, they recorded their hits here at Fame Studios. And you're seeing a big surge back to 90s country, back to the old-timey country. I think there was a survey done between 18 and 24-year-olds who their favorite artist, and some of them picked Johnny Cash. In fact, most of them picked Johnny Cash because he was so real and authentic. And I think Muscle Shoals is really that place where Nashville, when I was working there in the 80s and 90s, it really seemed like a family community where writers got together and producers got together in houses and broke bread, and we shared music and wrote songs. And that's what Muscle Shoals is. I mean, Muscle Shoals is just, it's got some great studios, great engineers, and musicians from all different genres of music coming together and just being creative and being family again.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing. Obviously, people know your history, and we can talk about that a little bit, but let's talk about what you're doing right now. So we have a new song here. Tell us about Garrett Miles and some of the stuff, what you're working on with him right now.
Yeah, of course, Garrett was on American Idol back in 2015, and the young man, he's from Phoenix City, Alabama. He was blind since birth, and he sings in English and Spanish. And, he's a traditional country guy. He loves traditional country, Texas swing, which is where this song goes. And he loves Texas. And there's some wonderful folks out in Eastland, Texas that have embraced him and want him to make that home. And we found a young lady out there that, Miss Lacey Hayes, she's just got an amazing voice. So her and Garrett partnered together on this song that I got to write with my good friend Heather Beckett. And it's a Texas swing song, and we're going to try to go out to Texas and break him at Texas radio. But he's an amazing young man, amazing talent. And if you don't know about Garrett Miles, you need to get to know about him.
Garrett Miles and Lacey Hayes, is that what you said? Is that her name?
That's correct.
All right, and this is called Texas to the Moon and Back, and this is written and produced by you, and you have a co-writer on this as well, correct?
Correct. And my co-writer is Heather Beckett. Yeah.
And I had the pleasure to watch a little bit of this in action when I was there. We were recording some final things for this track. Fran, if we have it, let's fire it up. Here we go. Listen to this. You talk about Texas swing. Come on now. Here we go. And I want the audience to tell me who they think this girl sounds like.
This dang old rodeo keeps on busting me. My wallet, my backside, and my bones. And even though it keeps me broken, gone from you, you're always there to welcome me home. You understand the life of a cowboy better than anyone I know. If my life was ever seen upon that silver screen, you'd be the star of the show. Your love keeps holding me together.
Come on now.
Every time I think I fall apart, yeah, you mend all the broken pieces. When someone breaks my heart, yeah, honey, you're the strength to all my weakness. You make up everywhere I lack. And if you wonder how much I love you, baby, from Texas to the moon and back.
Oh, man, Garrett Miles sounds good. Keep it rolling, friend. All right, I want the audience to tell me who you think this young lady sounds like. It shouldn't take you too long. Woo. Here we go.
I love how we both love country music.
It
makes you grin to hear me sing along. When you take me up to 75 and forward, I keep you on the dance floor all night long.
mean, right there. I mean,
If it weren't
all right, Fran, that's good. Take it down. I mean, Michael, if that's not a young Dolly Parton, let me just say it. I'm sure the audience is weighing in right now. I mean, she is. I mean, that is unbelievable. That is like, that's George Strait. I think of the Fireman, or I think of some others, but that is just Texas swing right in the pocket there.
Thank you, Damon. Yeah, I tell you, that's what we were going for, and I think Garrett and Lacey were a great pair for this song.
Yeah, it's really great, and good luck with it on Texas radio. I mean, I don't see how that can't get into rotation would be beyond me. I mean, that is just incredible. So let's talk about the future. Obviously, we have done a lot of talking since I was there, and we've come up with some ideas, and through all the people you know. By the way, just could you give the audience just a little bit of kind of how you cut your teeth on country music and some of the things you've been a part of with Randy Travis and others?
Oh yeah, I was raised steeply in country music. I was raised by my grandparents in South Tennessee and moved to Alabama down here in Muscle Shoals. But man, I've got to work with some amazing folks: Ricky Skaggs, Blake Shelton. I got to work with Randy Travis, Marty Raven, the group Shenandoah, Leanne Womack, several guys. I got to write quite a bit for them, and then I converted to. Well, I'd been a Christian all my life, but I came back to the Lord in 1990 and started writing a lot of country songs about Jesus. And then Randy Travis and a lot of these guys started recording my songs. And, man, we had a gold record with Randy on Rise and Shine, which is the same album. He had 3 wooden crosses on. But actually, that album won a Grammy. And I got to work and do a lot with Randy. And you know me, Damon, I don't like to brag too much on myself, but I just love seeing songs go from creation to like what that song is, and writing with people, producing, and that's why I love these musical environments and artists like Garrett, man, who just are born to sing.
Yeah. So we've been talking, and we think it's a good idea to maybe we might think about putting something together here that kind of highlights the then and now of music in Muscle Shoals area, where we kind of talk to some of these great studio people like Billy Lawson and others, and then highlight some of this young talent on what may become a new show here between us, right? Isn't that what we're thinking?
I would love to see that happen, and I'm just telling you, Billy and several of the artists that have been around here for years that I've even mentioned about it, they're all about it. Damon, and of course, these new artists like any way to get their music out. And how cool would that be to be a part of telling the world some of this history that's not even told even in the documentary. The documentary is great, but there's so much history here.
Yeah.
And, Sam Phillips, the father of rock and roll, Sun Records, he was from Florence, Alabama. W.C. Handy, the father of the blues. All that happened right here around this river. So it's such amazing history that we could tell, but then introduce the world to new artists like Garrett and Lacey.
Yeah. Well, it sounds good. It's a day I'll never forget. I can't thank you enough. You, your beautiful family. We got to meet everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will obviously we'll see you down the road.